Here now with some whiteboard wisdom, Karl Rove. He is former Deputy Chief of Staff for President George W. Bush and a Fox News contributor. Karl, it's always good to see you and hear from you. You retweeted Josh Kraushaar, who wrote this in the National Journal, quoting here, Biden's political strategy going forward is clear. Go big. Talk a pragmatic game, but govern in a progressive fashion. It's not the unity that was promised, but rather the power politics that a no-holds-barred operator like Rahm Emanuel or even Mitch McConnell would appreciate. In other words, he talks unity, but that is not the goal.
Yeah, I think that's right. He talked unity during the campaign, but what we've seen is straight party line votes. He talked compromise, but he has stiff-armed the Republicans. That's the reason for these straight party line votes. He had one meeting with 10 Republican senators about the COVID relief bill, and basically, when they left the White House, said, we're not going to do any of that. My bill or no, my bill is going to be the bill that goes to the Senate. And finally, he campaigned as a centrist. I'm the more normal Democrat, and yet he is governing on a far left-wing agenda. When the left is happy, when you have Bernie Sanders and AOC praising President Biden for his left-wing agenda, you know he's not the old centrist he promised to be.
Yeah, and you go one better. You know, the left is happy because you read this in the Daily Beast, Karl. It says, quoting here, he is proving that not only is he an effective champion for America's disenfranchised and most vulnerable, but he has something that has long eluded the most progressive voices in the Democratic Party, the ability to translate big ideas into action. Daily Beast is happy. AOC is happy. Everybody on the left is happy.
Well, yeah, and look, I'm not certain it's his ability. It's his willingness to let people on his staff and people up on the Hill write a bill that appeases the left rather than the traditional Democratic centrist instincts that he evinced. I noticed Congressman Gomez from California in the setup piece talked about how we got the universal basic income for children. That means that every child, their goal is every child in America, no matter what the income of their family is, gets a check, a regular check from the government year in and year out. Regardless of whether or not they need it and their family deserves to have it. And he said, we got it without a peep. Well, there's a reason why they got it without a peep. They did not have a single hearing in the House or a single hearing in the Senate on the provisions of the so-called COVID relief bill. 11 different committees would have normally had hearings where you could have discussed things like, should we really send checks, COVID relief checks to prisoners? Should we have a provision in here that gives $4 billion in forgiveness for U.S. Department of Agriculture loans to farmers and ranchers simply because of the color of their skin with no income test, no asset test? I mean, there are lots of junk in here that was sort of jammed through, and there was a reason why they didn't have a peep is because they didn't want to have people talking about it for too long, because otherwise the public reaction, I think, would be negative. And I think we're going to see that negativity grow as people hear more and more about it.
Lastly, Karl, I wanted to get your take on this because you've kind of become the lead voice of reason on what's happening down at the border. You're in Texas, we should note. You know, what do you make of this? They toured. You had some of the GOP congressmen touring these facilities today. We heard kids in cages in 19. Now they're kind of sweetening this up like, oh, not really a crisis, not really kids in cages. What do you think about what's happening down there?
Well, we are on a track to double the number of people who are apprehended at the border this fiscal year versus last fiscal year. And I think the Congressman Katko of New York caught it exactly right. People are coming here because the message was Joe Biden gets elected and they're going to let you in the Estados Unidos. And as a result, it's not just the children. I mean, as bad as that is, and as much as it tears at your heart, think about this. Through the end of February, nearly 250,000 adults came across the U.S. border. And guess what happened to them? Previously, what would have happened to them is you want to apply for refugee status, you either have to go back to your country of origin or go back and wait in Mexico. What's happening now? They're releasing those people who want to seek refugee status into the United States. They get on a bus in the Rio Grande Valley or El Paso and disappear into the rest of the country, and we're never going to see them show up for their refugee hearing. Why? Because they got here and they're going to remain here. This administration, look, I am strongly in favor of comprehensive immigration reform. I strongly favor doing something to resolve the situation of the Dreamers. I do believe that we ought to find a path to legalization for the people who are here illegally already, but we should not not encourage more people to come here illegally, and the people who are here illegally should not be given citizenship in 8 years, because that means that they're going to get citizenship long before many people who are waiting in the lines legally to get citizenship in the United States.
Look, I've been covering the border for 30 years, Karl. Well, my first job was down there, and you're exactly right. They get court orders they don't return. And nobody has their thumb or finger on the pulse better than the cartels and the smugglers. They know that these people are being incentivized, and they know how to fill up these, like we saw, these Ford Broncos and Ford Explorers with 28 people and get them across the border. I'll give you 15 seconds to wrap us up.
No, you're absolutely right. The cartels are making millions off of this every single day. It's a disaster along the border. You need to be tough if you want to protect America, and you need to be tough if you want to get comprehensive immigration reform. We cannot have unsecure, unsafe borders and get comprehensive reform. And I want next time we can talk about the Mammoth Huskies and the nickname I just found out you had as quarterback.
Yeah, he's talking about Chuck DeVore, who we just had on earlier. Chuck was my center in Mammoth High School. And yeah, we will talk about that later, Karl. Good to see you, sir. Thank you.
See you later, Hollywood.
Yeah, thank you, Karl.